Ubisoft now thinks it's a good idea to censor its future video games to comply with Chinese state censorship laws. I mean, it's a factual statement that is far better clickbait than I could ever come up with. Fucking marvellous. I was on my way home from work today, relaxing at the back of the bus, discreetly masturbating and watching a Yong Yea video about Ubisoft's censorship policy. For the legal record, these two activities were entirely unrelated, and not how I behave normally. I'm not some kind of deviant that makes a habit of sitting on public transport watching YouTube videos. For those of you who don't know who Yong Yea is, he's basically the BBC World Service of the gaming news industry. You might not agree with him or like his show, but as a general rule, if something is going down in the gaming world, he will almost certainly cover it, and often as the story breaks. Most gaming YouTubers subscribe to Yong Yea because he's like the morning paper for gaming news. I've linked the video in the description, but let's just say I was fairly triggered by the situation I heard him describe in great detail. Before I go any further, I will just say Yong Yea and Erik, Kain, senior contributor from Forbes, earned absolute respect for taking a stand on this issue. They both took a righteous stance and rightly think the situation is fucking ridiculous. And the situation, as they say, is this. Basically, Ubisoft came clean about their censorship master plan in their dev blog on the 2nd of November. In order to expand Rainbow Six Siege into the Chinese market, they're going through some kind of Chinese state-sanctioned censorship and compliance process. In order to save money, instead of doing a heavily censored Chinese version for Chinese territories, Ubisoft announced on its dev blog that they intended on changing the whole game in all territories to be compliant with Chinese censors and state regulation. The thin end of the wedge was the removal of any pictures or references to blood, skulls, sex, even neon outlines of female legs, gambling, and yeah, that's a bit fucking rich. So no blood or sexual content in a fucking adult video game about violence. Is anyone going to be surprised when I say the players lost their shit? Ubisoft kept insisting that they were only changing minor visual details and they didn't affect gameplay. Even if this were true, it's still insulting that they would sanitise an existing paid-for product based on overseas censorship rules. But their defence is not even true. Ubisoft claims to have a commitment to ensure that the Rainbow Six Siege experience would remain true to its roots and not change any core gameplay. Well, that's a crock of shit, because they plan to remove all reference of blood, sex, skulls and God knows what other imagery from the game, and also remove some offending terrain features that did actually change the physical environment. I'm sorry, but you can't remove every adult reference to sexuality, all blood, skulls and other symbolism and get to play the authenticity card in the video game industry. They don't give a fuck about remaining true to its roots, its customers, or anything else for that matter. They care about Asian markets, and everyone else can go to fuck. Thankfully, on the 20th of November, Ubisoft took the gun out of its fucking mouth and backed down. Now it's fucking great that Ubisoft had the sense to back down over this, because their Rainbow Six Siege community rioted and went batshit fucking crazy over this. But the important issue still remains. Why the fuck would they even consider doing this in the first place? As it demonstrates their casual attitude to flippantly censoring existing IPs and products that the customers have already paid for and invested in heavily, both in time and money. And second, based on Ubisoft's own admission that it wants to become future-proof for these issues, it raises the very significant and definite expectation that all future titles from Ubisoft are going to be carefully crafted and pre-censored prior to release to be compliant with China's draconic and fickle censorship and social compliance laws. China, the country in the world with the most draconian censorship regime on the fucking planet. But if anyone from the Chinese secret police is watching, please don't murder me. There are several issues here. Why the fuck should your loyal domestic customers have their enjoyment reduced to appease an overseas prospective market? And just as significantly, has anyone at Ubisoft taken a long hard look at Chinese political society recently and appreciated the full horror of the shit show they are gleefully and enthusiastically planning to sign us all up to? Future Ubisoft games plan to be compliant with Chinese censorship laws? China is a very, very different cultural and political space than we're used to. Censorship and government information control is hard-baked into Chinese society. For example, by 2020, the Chinese government will have fully rolled out its new social credit system. This is basically like a video game of your life. There's even an app for your smartphone. Well, it's like a video game, where nearly everyone loses. This system gives every Chinese citizen a real-time score based on their behaviour, spending patterns, website activity, who they associate with online, whether they jaywalk, watch porn, buy booze, smoke, drive too fast, go to dodgy political meetings, or criticise the government in any recorded or monitored locale. This is being implemented by a nationwide blanket of facial recognition and tracking cameras, data mining everyone's online activity, tracking everyone's web browsing history, and tunnels right down to even talking to the wrong person on the street in an area with facial recognition cameras. Everything will be recorded online and filmed in real life, and everything might boost or diminish your social credit score. The consequences of your social credit score are legion. If you have a great one, then you get better access to schools, job opportunities and housing. If your social credit score is shit, you can't even own property, gain access to certain social services or job interviews, or even buy fucking tickets to travel domestically or abroad. Needless to say, the lower your rating, the more you're forced to hang out with other people of low rating. Therefore, by association, you get your social credit rating reduced. I'm talking about full-on Orwellian 1984 dystopian science fiction movie fucking nightmare scenario playing out in real time. Right now, in China, and nobody seems to give much of a fuck outside of China. And inside China, nobody is complaining. Because you guessed it, they don't want to get instantly blacklisted and have their social credit rating crushed for openly criticising the government. I'm not being xenophobic about China. I'm just trying to point out that it's a different culture. Christ, we edit movies in different subtle ways, depending on whether they're being released in America or the UK. And we're pretty fucking similar. China? Not so much. They edit black actors completely out of movie posters in China. They have advertisements like this on TV. Chicken eggs soaked in the urine of virgin schoolboys is sold on the street as fast food, along with deep-fried spiders. Single women hire temporary male prostitute boyfriends for Lunar New Year, which is actually awesome. They wear fucking face bikinis for fuck's sake. Actually, that's okay too. It's really just adding a free 50% to a bikini, which has got to be a good thing, right? They censor the internet and social networking apps, and websites have to be government approved, which is not such a good thing. Teaching and supporting the original Tibetan language is considered to be a crime of sedition and will get you 15 years in prison, plus the 2 to 5 years you serve whilst they hold you without trial. And, as I said, the entire fucking country is being forced to use a social media scoring phone app, where speaking to the wrong kind of person in the street will be spotted by facial recognition cameras and reduce your social standing. In real time. Is Ubisoft seriously considering censoring its fucking video games to conform with this kind of agenda? Although, if anyone from the Chinese Secret Service is listening, please don't murder me. I want to make it clear right now, I have nothing against China, and I have no beef with anyone from China. Christ, Busty Asian Babes is one of my favourite gentlemen's magazines. I'm sure just like any country in the world, the average person on the street in China, if you got them down the pub, would probably be just as likeable as the average person on the street anywhere, with the possible exception of Millwall. I'm not criticising people who are Chinese. I mean, after all, they're the people who have to try and live under this regime of total social control. China is, in its own special way, an incredible nation that has made spectacular and rapid achievements and is rightfully worthy of recognition and respect. They have made groundbreaking leaps in science and technology. They're the world leader in genetically engineering dogs with superpowers. And now they're taking huge leaps. Well, huge leaps right over international scientific ethics agreements, and done it to babies too. And they have their own space program, where 11 of the astronauts they sent into space actually made it back. They have some of the best paleontology departments in the world that are so advanced and skilled that they make their own fossils and sell them abroad. They make everything really cheaply. Electronics, kitchen utensils, sex toys, and really cost-effective rechargeable batteries that only weigh half as much as they should and charge in a fraction of the time. Sure, they drain really fast too and occasionally explode, but they're cheap and only take a month to arrive. Look, they even found a way to make an AK-47 cheaper, and that gun is made out of tractor parts and wire coat hangers. I'm not disrespecting China. It's a country of great achievement. It's a country that sets goals and doesn't let anything get in its way. China wanted the South China Sea to itself, so it didn't dwell on the problems. It focused on the solution. Yes, I'll admit the solution involved a little bit of invading, but you have to admire their results-focused thinking. China has the best organ donor system on the planet. They have fast-tracked the organ matching and sourcing system with a supply chain management structure reaching all the way from the hospital bed of the rich politician's sick daughter, right the way back through the judicial system to the point of arrest. China has turned the once pointless region of Tibet into the country's very literal industrial powerhouse. They turned Tibet into the world's biggest supplier of nuclear and hydroelectric power by throwing the rule book out of the window. They literally threw the book on nuclear and radiological safety out of the window, along with the books on environmental protection and human rights. Literally, all the rule books went out of the window. And a load of political protesters got thrown out of windows too. But they got a lot of free energy. Lots and lots of free energy. They even found a way to heat local businesses by recycling the unemployed and spiritually dispossessed. China is a wonderful, rich cultural nation. They've got those boats from that James Bond movie, and other cultural shit like ninjas. I don't know. Look, I'm not claiming to be an expert on Chinese culture. I'm just saying that if I was, I would definitely think China is an awesome country. And I really don't want their secret service to murder me. Look, I'm not trying to be judgmental, disparaging or critical of that great nation. I'm just trying to make the point that right at this precise moment in history, there are some subtle cultural and political differences between China and countries that are not completely batshit fucking insane. Maybe I don't have any right to judge. I mean, I'm from fucking London. Our biggest cultural achievements are football hooliganism, shit food and spitting. I'm not saying I'm any better than anyone else. What I'm saying is that I don't want my video games censored and constructed to comply with one of the most socially controlling states on the fucking planet. A state that might just change their mind about what is acceptable on a fucking whim, and has a track record of doing precisely that. But if anyone from their intelligence services is listening, please don't murder me. My beef is not with China. My beef is with Ubisoft, who have proclaimed to have ambitions to make all its future games compliant and conforming to a culture that is totally fucking unaligned with Western gaming values. I want tits, blood, skulls, and fucking obscenity in my video games. I don't want censorship, gambling, in-game social communication monitoring and control. Yeah, I don't want all Ubisoft video games built to Chinese specifications because, you know, I don't want all chat functionality in my video games to have a baked-in Chinese government backdoor access. Because, that's one of the rules. Ubisoft should learn a few valuable lessons from history. World of Warcraft tried to suck off the Asian market when it released their expansion Mists of Pandaria. The heavily self-censored expansion, primarily marketed around Kung Fu and fucking pandas. Well, how did that work out? Well, I know a lot of people that blame it for the fucking collapse of World of Warcraft. I know a lot of people in the West, over the age of 9, immediately stopped playing, and the game continued its downward slide, losing 2.5 million subscribers. What a shocker. Who would have thought it? People over the age of 9 didn't like fucking panda bears, and a lot of the marketing was about as patronising and successful as trying to sell a sci-fi RPG to Germans by dressing up all the characters in lederhosen. I would imagine that China found the panda imagery a mite patronising. The TLDR is, despite spending a lot of money and continuing to split profits with legally mandatory Chinese state-approved business partners, the downward slide of WoW continued, with little more than a bump in the statistics. What they gained abroad, they lost at home. And their gains abroad, well, they had to split the profits on that. Then there was the famous case of Battlefield 4, which was a totally Chinese-centric story, and you could play as a Chinese soldier. How well did that shit go down in China? Who fucking cares? China's Ministry of Taking Cultural Offence for no reason ended up banning it because it mentioned the Chinese invasion of the South China Sea. China banned the game. They banned reporting on the game. They banned pictures of the game. They banned words associated with the game. They banned doing internet searches for words associated with the game. There are two hard-proven fucking truths associated with Ubisoft's strategy. You can never guarantee that it will be a success in the Chinese market. But you can absolutely guarantee that everyone is going to fucking despise it at home. Don't fuck over your domestic customers for a prospective market that might just fucking ban the game anyway. They should make games that please existing loyal customers. Make new games or versions to please your prospective potential customers abroad. Don't sell out your loyal supporters for a fast buck. Again. I don't expect anyone to take my opinions at face value, and you shouldn't. So go and do a bit of research for yourselves. But right now, China is not a great place to be if you're a fan of things like human rights, freedom of speech, democracy, privacy, freedom of association, access to legal representation, scientific and medical ethics rules, legal justice, Tibetan Buddhism. Fuck, you can't even watch this video in China because they banned YouTube there too. We should all rightly be terrified of video games falling under the influence of a regime that banned Radio Australia for being a subversive organisation. But for now, good luck and happy hunting. And if anyone from the Chinese intelligence services is listening, please don't murder me.